Hello there, welcome to this week's farming forecast. Last week we were looking at soil temperatures for the prospects for sugar beet planting and drilling. This week we're going to take a look at the Ontario heat units, which is used for the maize season. And typically the maize season is considered somewhere between mid-April and mid-October. That's where we usually calculate the OHU from. And it takes into account those days where the air temperature by day is above 10 degrees as a maximum, and the nighttime minimum stays above 4 degrees Celsius as well. And obviously the higher up you are on that scale, the higher your temperatures, the more Ontario heat units you accumulate over time. So this map here is based on the past 10 years or so averaged together using a 1 kilometre dataset HAD UK grid, just showing how many Ontario heat units you typically get in each location in an average year. And you can see quite clearly the numbers are higher the further south you go. As you would expect, the south and east of the UK is generally warmer and therefore more likely to accumulate more OHU. Now, usually the threshold of around 2,900 is used as being ideal, more reliably so, based on these average conditions for growing maize. And so that's generally the sort of yellow colours and above, yellows into the reds and pinks. So that covers much of sort of central and southern Britain. And the further north you are, you're in the blues, so the OHU is a lot lower here, but it's still possible you can grow maize in these areas. You just have to be a bit more clever about how you go about things, basically using plastic covers, for example, to help increase your OHU more than you would do otherwise if just exposed to the elements itself. So an interesting map nonetheless. We'll keep an eye on developments of OHU over the course of the next few weeks and indeed months as we head further on into the season. In general, for drilling purposes, it's considered that if you've got 4 to 5 consecutive days where the starting soil temperatures in the morning are around 8 degrees or higher, that's usually considered ideal for drilling maize. And at the moment, given that we've still got some frosty nights, we haven't quite reached that threshold, not especially in East Anglia at the moment, for example, but it will be interesting to see how things go over the next few weeks as things continue to warm up towards the warm season. To keep up to date with the soil temperatures where you are using the nearest official weather stations, you can get all of that plus a detailed hour by hour forecast on our Weatherquest portal. Now normally this comes with a free 7-day trial, but because this is the start of the season for many crop, we're quite keen to let you know what we can offer you and help and make your services a little bit more efficient, perhaps save you some time and ultimately saving you money as well. So if you want to sign up to the Weatherquest portal, just send us an email to the email address here, info@weatherquest.co.uk. We'll set you up an account, we'll show you what's available, including things like the jet stream images, as I say, soil temperatures, we've got probability forecasts going out in time as well, helping you to plan your work basically going forward. And the spraying index is also very useful amongst many of our customers who are trying to get out and about doing some spraying. Plus, of course, you get the monthly forecast twice a week. This video, but in written format with plenty of forecaster commentary and maps as well. So as I say, just send us an email and we'll sign you up. Now, another aspect of weather we're getting a lot of questions about at the moment on our premium rate line are spraying conditions. It's that time of the year, of course, a lot of people are trying to get on with some spraying on the fields. And actually with high pressure close by, it's been fairly quiet weather-wise in terms of good conditions for spraying over the last couple of weeks or so. So this graph here just shows the sort of conditions we've seen in weekly chunks over the past 3 weeks. And you can clearly see there's been an increase week on week of potential spraying conditions. By that we mean the winds are below 10 miles an hour and it's dry. There's no rain falling during that hour as well. Now this is averaged over the whole of the UK, so as you would expect, some corners of the UK have seen more spraying potential than others, particularly the further south you come. And it also takes into account overnight hours as well. Now I know not everyone sprays during the night hours, but you know, a lot of you like to get up first thing in the morning and then again in the evening when the winds have eased down before they pick up during the middle part of the day. So this sort of incorporates those aspects of it as well. But you can see it's been increasing gradually. I suspect this week will also be a pretty decent week for spraying as well. The pressure pattern has become slacker with time as we head towards the warmer season, and so the winds have been somewhat lighter, and of course high pressure nearby has meant it stayed rather dry much of the time as well. So let's take a look at the forecast for the next few days for this week. And in general, high pressure is in charge at the moment. It is centred just to the east of us, towards the eastern side of Europe, but close enough to keep us fairly quiet. There is a weather front towards the west of Scotland that will try and push some rain in through the course of the next few days really, but further south not many isobars. They're very widely spaced, which means the winds are light. It's a fairly slack looking pattern. Now as I run this sequence through the next few days, that front pushes into Scotland. We'll see a bit of rain here, not much, but then high pressure builds again in from the north through Thursday. So things are still fairly quiet, warm by day, chilly at night, with just a chance of 1 or 2 isolated showers triggered by those afternoon temperatures. Towards the Easter weekend, notice how low pressure to the north becomes a little bit more dominant. The high is a bit weaker, followed by a second low there on Easter Day, on Sunday. So you get the vibe. Now don't take it too literally, because there's still quite a bit of uncertainty in the specific detail for Friday and into the weekend. But the overall vibe is much of this work week we are relatively quiet, dry, sunny days, maybe isolated showers, but most places dry, and some coolish nights, but nothing too cold. And then towards Friday onwards, we start to get weak fronts or weak areas of low pressure trying to come in off the Atlantic. So just a higher chance of getting the odd shower here and there, maybe a little bit of rain every now and again, but not a washout by any means. In fact, even by the end of the weekend, some places may have only seen 5, 6, 7 millimetres at most. The wettest conditions will always be towards the northwest of Scotland, where rain and showers will tend to be most frequent. But elsewhere, as I say, there isn't a lot of rain to be had. There's still quite a bit of dry, even though the pattern is becoming a little bit less reliable, and that will have a bit of an impact on spraying potential as well. Keep an eye on that area of high pressure down towards the Azores. That will come into play next week. Before we get there, let's just go over the spraying conditions this week. So the green here is where conditions are ideal for spraying. So again, light winds below 10 miles an hour and dry conditions. And as I run this sequence through, you'll notice how much green there is on the map there over the coming days, swamping the UK. So good conditions for spraying for the next few days. And then towards Friday and the weekends, they start to get eroded a little bit, not necessarily because of the wind. I don't think it'll be too windy. It's more of showers and a few bits and pieces of rain that may have a bit of a hindrance, if you like, for trying to get some spraying done over the weekend. So my advice is the forecast for the weekend will probably keep chopping and changing between now and then. So it's best to keep up to date with the latest forecasts, and make sure you keep up to date over the coming days, because the detail will keep changing on your phone app, online, or indeed on TV as well. Now into next week, that high I mentioned earlier on over the Atlantic, that will likely build across the northern half of the UK, toppling over that area of low pressure down across Spain. So what that means is northern areas will tend to become a bit drier. We'll have a northeasterly flow off the North Sea. That's a fairly chilly direction. So it'll be quite cool, I think, to start next week. Perhaps a higher chance of frost, especially in the north. Quite breezy in the south on this graph, on this chart here, and that could bring in a few showery bursts of rain. But in general, yes, there may be a few showers early next week. The general pattern is, though, that high will sort of topple in and slide southeastwards over the UK early part of next week to give us some dry days but chilly nights, but hopefully some sunny spells around as well. Towards mid to late next week, again, a lot of uncertainty, but the general trend is, as that high drifts away over towards the continent, we could well see low pressure towards the southwest, pushing some showery rain up from the southwest there. So there's going to be some uncertainty about how far north that gets, how widespread and how much rain, but perhaps something a little bit wetter developing towards the mid to latter part of next week, something along those sorts of lines. Now, we showed you this table last week. This is based on Ensemble data. Click on the top of the video if you want to know what Ensemble data is, how do we use it to make a forecast. But what this is basically showing is your chance of having a dry day, day by day, going out over the next 4 weeks based on this data. And down the left hand side there, a selection of different regions in the UK. Most of them are in England, but there are a couple in Wales and one in Scotland as well. Now, the main message to take from this is, again, don't concentrate on the specifics, but generally speaking, if it's green coloured, it's more likely to rain on that day than be dry, and if it's brown, it's more likely to stay dry and not rain. And you can get some broad trends coming out of this over the next few days, if not weeks. So you can see quite clearly between sort of Tuesday and Thursday, it's pretty much dry in most places, bar the odd isolated shower. And then towards Friday, and more especially into the weekend, we start to see things turning a little bit wetter in places with a slightly higher chance, hence the green colours, of getting some rain or some showers in places. But again, it won't be a lot of rain. It's not a washout, just the chance that there could be a few more showers, less reliable for being dry. Then there is a trend into next week, actually, as a high builds back in again, Tuesday and possibly into Wednesday, for dry conditions to prevail once more. And then the signal becomes a bit weaker after that, which is just that indication that that area of low pressure could be getting a little bit closer, might give us the odd wet day here and there. But really, if you look at the overall pattern, there's a lot more brown than there is green, which suggests that overall, this month at least, is turning out to be quite a dry one, and that's likely to be the story going forward in time as well, looking at the current data. Yes, there will be the odd day that may be wet as fronts come in or showers develop, but on balance, a lot of the time, it's probably going to end up being dry. So it'll probably fluctuate between these sort of several days of dry weather, a couple of days of something a little bit wetter, and then back to dry once again. There is a trend right at the end of this sequence here, perhaps towards something a bit more unsettled, late April, early May, a long way off at the moment to pin down any detail. So here's how things look across Europe for week 2, so between the 13th and the 19th of April, this is after Easter. You can see the red anomaly there, that's the pressure anomaly, high pressure over the UK, extending across southern Scandinavia, much of northern Europe as well, low pressure down across Iberia, and with the flow generally coming in from a northeasterly sort of direction, at least initially, it is quite a cool direction. We'll have some chilly nights, and that'll bring the average temperatures down, even though it may still be close to or even a touch above average by day across the UK, hence the white colours there, getting close to average, but there will be some chilly nights to be had. Just bear that one in mind. And in terms of rainfall, well, it's quite clear the browns there indicating below average. Notice that low that was over Spain, giving some quite wet conditions here with rain and showers rotating around that, affecting the western side of the Mediterranean in particular through this week. And not a great deal of change you can see on the mean pressure pattern. Again, this is average for the whole 7-day period. So amongst those 7 days, there could be a couple of days where you get the odd little area of low pressure coming in with some showery rain. But on balance, high pressure dominating across a good chunk of northern and Western Europe through this period. Temperatures again near, maybe slightly above average. We're losing that sort of chilly flow perhaps, getting a bit later on into the latter part of April now. Still though, below average temperatures showing up across Spain, and here it will be quite wet at times still because low pressure is closer, but much of mainland Europe and indeed the UK having below average rainfall indicated by the brown colour on the map there. Now by the end of April, early May, it becomes very weak. The signals are very weak. There's no real strong signal either way for low or high pressure. Safe to say probably close to normal for the time of the year. So it's hard to pin down much detail really by the time we get through to late April, early May, and especially given the fact that we will have knock-on effects from fewer aircraft observations being taken right now because of the number of flights that are being grounded around the world, and that will have a bit of an impact on our ability to forecast further ahead. But here's the temperature anomaly currently forecast for that last week, late April, early May. And in terms of rainfall, well, at the moment it's being flagged up as being near or even slightly above average across the western side of the UK for this period. So just a hint that things may become a little bit more unsettled late April into the beginning of May. So to summarise what's going to happen, looking dry really for the next few days, bar the odd isolated shower. Most places they will have a lot of dry weather this week, but there is that greater chance of something a bit more showery developing during the weekend. But the detail of that will change, so do stay up to date with the latest forecast. Often dry though really through much of the rest of the month, with just these occasional slightly wetter periods but interspersed with some lengthy dry spells as well. So plenty of spraying potential I suspect over the coming few weeks, for example, and possibly something a bit more unsettled towards late April, early May. But at this early stage, quite a bit of uncertainty with fairly low confidence at the moment. So that's how things are looking. You can keep up to date with the day-by-day forecast by following us on social media, and of course we have our East Anglia podcast available every day on our website. Bye for now.